Jeez.
David, is that the fresh green apple or the lemongrass in the Jingjiao Bai that's making you cough?
It's 40%, whatever it is. My gosh.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Stay tuned for an amazing podcast from Shenzhen, including all the way at the end, a very special musical street treat. Cheers. Oh, God.
That's quite nice.
From the latest on Caribbean cruises to kosher safaris, pilgrimages to Jewish Eastern Europe, and award-winning wines and international cuisine in sun-drenched Tel Aviv. Sit back and enjoy the trip with the travel edition of the Jerusalem Post podcast. Good morning, Mark.
Morning, David. Is it morning?
It is in Israel, but not where we are now.
Yes, I'm kind of a bit lost for time. We took a 10-hour flight last night, left at some time in the afternoon, arrived sometime early in the morning, and then went to bed. And we've just had lunch where we would have had breakfast, so I'm completely confused.
We didn't have lunch, we had a banquet.
A banquet lunch.
It was very, very impressive.
It was. Lots of mushrooms.
Yes. Staying at the Langham in Shenzhen.
That's easy for you to say.
It's easier than Polish.
True, although I think by the end of this trip we'll be butchering a whole new language.
Shenzhen is a very large, very new city in southern China on the South China Sea. I mean, there's a myriad of facts that we could bring to your attention, but I'll just give you one. It has one of the largest ports in the world.
Another fun fact, and this is one David will like, it has the 5th tallest building in the world.
Are we going up it?
Oh, I hope so.
More of that to come. We're actually, this time, we don't often do it with a group of Israeli journalists and people from think tanks, which probably means they're far more intelligent than you and I.
Does that mean they think and they look like tanks?
Or they sort of just swim around in tanks?
You're just fishing for compliments.
Oh, dearie me. We are going to bring you the sights, sounds, smells, etc., of Shenzhen. One of our wonderful hosts, Mr. May, is currently photographing us. He hadn't noticed that we're on the back seat of the bus recording. He's got a big grin on his face as he's taking our photograph.
Well, one fun fact about Mr. May managed to lose his luggage, so Mr. May is still in his shorts while the rest of us were all dressed very smartly.
Oh, it was a total embarrassment at lunch, wasn't it? No, I was very impressed, considering he claimed he didn't have any clothes at all. He came in a very, very beautifully pressed shirt.
We are lucky enough to be invited here by the Chinese People's Association for Friendship with Foreign Countries.
I cannot believe you remembered it.
I probably didn't remember it, and there will be at least 3 words wrong there.
We are suddenly the source of much mirth at the back end of the bus. So we're going to bring you a lot of Shenzhen over the next half hour or so. But before we so do, Mark, would you like in traditional fashion to bring listeners a quiz question?
I will try my very best. Our question for Shenzhen is twinned with a number of cities around the world, including Edinburgh, where we have made a podcast, Poznan, where we have made a podcast, but which city in Israel is it twinned with?
Fun facts from Mark. The answer at the end of the pod.
To talk the latest news in Israel, the Jewish world, and everything in between.
This is the J-Post Podcast. I'm Tamar Uriel-Beery, Deputy Editor-in-Chief of the Jerusalem Post.
And I'm Tzvika Klein, Editor-in-Chief of the Jerusalem Post.
And I'm Sarah Ben-Nun, Night Editor at the Jerusalem Post. Join us as we bring some of the most impactful voices to bring you into what it means to be Jewish, to be Israeli today.
Every week, we bring you with us into the newsroom in every sense.
Stop being so dramatic. This is just our coffee break.
You can find us every Thursday on jpost.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We'll see you there.
Yalla, bye.
My name is Ryan Zhou. I'm from the Foreign Affairs Office of Shenzhen. I also serve as the Secretary General of Shenzhen People's Association for Friendship with Foreign Countries.
We are standing on the 24th floor of the Langham Shenzhen. with an amazing view. Can you tell us what the view is, what we can see in front of us?
This is the CBD area of Shenzhen, and in front of us is the sea area of Shenzhen. The other side of the sea is Hong Kong, is adjacent to Shenzhen.
We've had a wonderful meeting with yourself and your colleagues in which we've talked about the finances, the success of this place, which was 20,000 people 45 years ago. We host a tourism podcast, and I know that this city has developed tourism phenomenally over that period. Can you explain a little bit of that for our listeners?
So Shenzhen is a beautiful city. Shenzhen, we have 50% of the land area is ecologically controlled zone. We have a lot of parks, and the public service system here is quite sound. So we encourage all the people from different corners of the world to come to visit Shenzhen, to experience the hospitality of Shenzhen, to experience the beautiful scenery of Shenzhen, to experience the high development of China, one of the biggest cities in China here in Shenzhen.
If I'm looking to come to Shenzhen as a tourist, what would be the first thing you would tell me to go and see?
I would like to encourage foreign visitors to go to the website of Shenzhen, iShenzhen, to learn a little bit information about Shenzhen, to do a kind of homework to see which place you're most interested in, what kind of food we would like to enjoy, and you take the flight and you do the proper visa application, and then when you land down to Shenzhen, you can organize your trip.
Thank you so much.
It's a bit busy here, David.
It's huge.
We are at Yangzhou, and excuse the pronunciation, North metro station. One of the busiest metro stations in Shenzhen, but not the busiest.
We've been getting some factoids on the level of traffic that comes through this city every day, this station every day. And the facts that we were being given include how many people per 1 kilometre travel on the metro every day, every minute. It's just remarkable.
How many, David?
Well, here's the interesting one. More people can travel on the Shenzhen metro in one day, and this happened on the 12th of July 2024, than the entire population of Israel.
This is a city of 20 million people, and on a single day, more than half of them will be on the Shenzhen metro. We are above one of the platforms, about to go down. I'll join you again in a minute. So despite the size and despite the volume of people, it's extraordinarily organized here. There's no pushing, no shoving, nothing seems overcrowded, but yet there are hundreds of thousands of people walking through this station. The metro is only 20 years old, yet it's already up to about 350 miles, about 570 kilometers worth of track, and the plan is by 2035 there will be over 1,000 kilometers, which is probably closer to 700 miles. There are 390 stations and 17 lines at the moment. Again, this is planned to double in size by 2035.
Talking of 2035, the plan of Shenzhen is that there will be regular unmanned helicopters ferrying people across the skies of this city.
And we found out more about that at the Shenzhen Urban Transport Planning Center. I think it's also called the Shenzhen Smart Cities, about not just the plan for unmanned flying vehicles, but unmanned road vehicles. There are currently 900 unmanned taxis actively working in Shenzhen.
Everything that you can possibly imagine about efficiency is what's being planned here and actually being implemented in this city right now. You're talking about a master plan that thinks about every single traffic light, how many pedestrians there are, and every other fact connected to transport. And not only that, where the schools are, where the hospitals are, and they're designing an entire city on that basis. When asked the question about are they heading more in the direction of public transport, trains and so on, the reply was actually interesting and different to what we normally hear. The idea is actually encouraging private vehicles, but they will be electric vehicles. So the environment is always being taken into consideration.
The current public transportation system is already fully electric, and again, this is part of the greater urban plan to keep the environment healthy while growing a city that's gone from 20,000 people to 20 million people in just 40 years.
As we heard from some of the city chiefs earlier in the day, this is actually, in relative terms, for a city of up to 22 million people, a small city. It's 3 times the size of Tel Aviv. Now, we're just going to describe what we're seeing.
One of the metros has just come in, and a throng of people are coming off the train. The first people off are running like crazy, and now there's just a gentle walk as people go from one line to the other, smoothly waiting for the next connection to wherever they're going home.
It's incredible how disciplined the whole system is, both from the point of view of the planning and the usage by the people. And maybe at this point, it's an aside, but let's say something about the welcome that we got in this station. Now, we're being treated as VIPs, but in terms of the security guards and everybody else, saluting, waving, smiling, and making sure that the guest comes first, walks first. It's just a very polite way of doing things.
One thing our hosts have been at pains to point out at every stop so far is what joint projects they have with Israel. At the Urban Transportation Centre, they have a joint project with a company called Halo, which is looking at integrating smart city planning and holograms. And at Shenzhen Metro, they have a stake and they run the current Tel Aviv Light Railway Red Line.
This is just the start of our trip to Shenzhen, and I've got a feeling over the next day or so that we're here, or 2 days, we're going to discover a lot more of the cooperation and also just learning about efficiency. And we'll also fill you in on some tremendous places that you can visit, but definitely on the basis of the 15-20 minutes we've spent in this station, absolutely make sure if you're in Shenzhen to visit the metro, take a ride, just to watch how beautifully it operates.
And talking of beautiful, there is a person walking up the stairs with half light blue, half dark blue hair. Just fascinating.
Shenzhen Fact File. The main airport is Shenzhen Bao'an International. There are direct flights to Shenzhen from LA and Johannesburg with Air China, from Heathrow with Shenzhen Airlines, from Amsterdam and Dubai with China Southern, and from Tel Aviv, Paris and Vancouver with Hainan Airlines. You can take the Metro Line 11 from the airport and connect with the city's network. There are also 5 city bus routes and 10 airport bus routes available. Recommended hotels in Shenzhen include the Langham, Ritz-Carlton, the Four Seasons, Raffles, Park Hyatt, Mandarin Oriental and Intercontinental. $1 will buy you 7.2 yuan. Shenzhen has hot, humid summers and mild winters, heavy rain between May and September, including typhoon activity between July and October. The drier season is between October and March. Winters are mild. The sunniest, driest and probably most comfortable time to visit is between the months of October and January. Situated in Guangdong province, Shenzhen's favourite cuisine is Cantonese food, although as a migrant city you can enjoy all sorts of cuisines. Top dishes include dim sum, seafood hot pot, Shenzhen roasted goose and Shajing oysters.
This is Mark Gordon from the Jerusalem Post Podcast Travel Edition. Find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at MarkDavidPod or mail us at markdavidpod@gmail.com.
I guess, Mark, it's too late to go back.
Get in the lift now.
55 seconds to climb
115 floors, 116 floors, lots of floors.
So I just started a game on one of my virtual reality things, and it says if you're going to feel dizzy, just look straight ahead. My ears just popped.
Yes, we're doing 10 meters a second, whatever that is in miles an hour. Scary music has just been added.
I can't do this. I can't. I'm going to be
up there. Get up there for the glass floor.
Stop scaring me.
And the open top and the abseiling.
The hardest part about this is actually, as I think we've already mentioned, we're travelling around with another 4 Israelis and a group of people who are accompanying us and people from the building who are looking after us. And we have to talk for 55 seconds while we go up.
And you know I'm going to be the one that doesn't come out the lift when we get there.
Mark, watch this.
David has found a little point 116 floors up that sticks out the side of the building. And guess what? It's got a glass floor. Go for it.
I am going to do this, and I'm going to prove to you that I can do this. And I'm very scared, but I am now standing on a glass floor. I will look straight down. I can see vehicles down below that look like ants. You know what that is over there, don't you?
Is that Hong Kong?
That would be Hong Kong, and the mountains surrounding it. We're here just at sunset. I think the sun has already set. See the clouds across the mountains on the other side of the bay. Over to our right is the South China Sea, and down below us is just a mass of creation, a place that houses 22 million people that didn't exist other than a fishing village 40 years ago.
It's so difficult to imagine that there were just a few houses here and boats over there, and now it is skyscraper after skyscraper, some of them 30, 40 floors, but we're up here at 116 floors. Shall I look down?
Help yourself.
Ooh, I'm holding on for dear life.
Mark,
David,
do you think if we complain about jet lag and the fact that we were up half the night in our luxury hotel in Shenzhen, that the listener will have any sympathy whatsoever?
I think the listeners given up being sympathetic to anything we do anymore because we have such a good time.
Okay, let's skip on. I'm sure you wanted to say something when I started that.
Good morning, David.
Good morning, Mark.
Busy day ahead in Shenzhen. Had a fascinating day yesterday to get a first impression of Shenzhen. Did it remind you of anywhere?
I know what you're going to say. I get it. Do you want to just say where you're thinking? Because I know where you're going with this.
It was a combination. Shenzhen is a new city. If you look across places in the world that are new, you could take Tel Aviv from Israel that's from 1948, 75 years old. And it doesn't look like that. You can go to Singapore. The country was established in the 1950s, and there are elements of Singapore, but Singapore has old historic districts. I think the closest comparison I can think of was Dubai.
There is definitely something of the Dubai about it, but I think firstly this is less grandiose, less showy, what we've seen so far, but also I think here you are much more aware of the residences. If you're in downtown Dubai, you're spending I think a lot more of your time looking at the showpiece buildings, and I think that becomes the centre point. Here you've got much more of a mix of types of buildings, even though they are all skyscrapers, but you can see the residences, the homes, the tall sort of 20, 30 story apartment blocks mixed in, and I think that's a difference.
I think we definitely got to see the glamour side when we went up the Ping Am Financial Centre building in the centre, like the Burj Khalifa, one of the tallest buildings in the world. You can hear the history of the building, go up, there's a viewing point, there's a lot of similarities there, there's a downtown, but here there's like a city that's not just tourism. There's a city where there is industry, modern industry that's been created in the last 40 years, so not heavy industry, and there's also a lot of greenery here.
Right. I think we're not going to necessarily sample all of the tourism sites in this town or this city, but there has been major investment in tourism infrastructure. There are a series of amusement parks, there are a couple of mini kingdoms where you can see famous buildings from around the world in miniature form. For example, yesterday we happened to see the tip of the Eiffel Tower as we were driving past that part of town. There is also a mini China here. The coastal area, there are some beautiful walks around there, there are eateries and so on. So whilst our focus over the couple of days that we're here is more on the investment, the business, the development, the technology, there is also thriving tourism in this town as well.
The likelihood is that our listener hasn't been to China. This is our first trip. Is it different to how you imagined it?
In my mind's eye, when I think of China, I think of something very different. And I've got the developments in my head, but what I'm thinking of is tea plantations, is historic villages in the centre of the country. Here, we're on the coast, we're in the heart of development, we're in one of the major drivers of the Chinese economy, my dream vision. But it's not just about China, it's the same about anywhere. If I think about our native England where we grew up, I don't think about Manchester industrial town, nor do I think about Windsor Castle or Buckingham Palace. I think about thatched cottages and little villages in the middle of nowhere, little dribbling as it's called by Bill Bryson. That's what, if you remember, when we were in Barcelona, I expressed extreme disappointment because I wanted to see something else.
I sat with you at breakfast, so I know all about your little dribbling. We were taken to the workings of the transport system here. We went to see the metro, we went to see the urban transport planning company. It had elements of what I expected. People here were very fact-driven. We were drowned in statistics yesterday. But that's like your stereotypical view of an efficient Chinese society. The thing that hit me the most, I think, was the modernity. That when you walk around, there's 7-Eleven, there's Starbucks. It's much more Western than I would have expected.
Talking of transport, why don't we do a little bit more?
Discover the future with Inside Israeli Innovation. I'm Eve Young from the Jerusalem Post, bringing you exclusive insights from Israel's top innovators. Each week, we dive into the latest trends in tech, business, and beyond with interviews from the brightest minds in the industry. Whether it's cutting-edge startups or revolutionary tech breakthroughs, Inside Israeli Innovation is your front row seat to the startup nation. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform and stay ahead of the curve. Inside Israeli Innovation, where innovation meets inspiration.
Electric cars, the future.
I would say 45 minutes out of Shenzhen, but actually we're still in Shenzhen, is one of the jewels of Shenzhen's manufacturing infrastructure, the Build Your Dreams factory, or at least the Build Your Dreams visitor centre.
So we've seen how the cars are made. We've learnt every factoid about production, about profits and so on in a really interesting visitor centre.
BYD is the best-selling brand in Israel. It has grown exponentially over the last 2 years. Maybe will be the number one brand in the world, if not now, next year. But BYD don't just build cars. It's an end-to-end production facility that includes batteries, cars, buses, sky rails, transportation systems, you name it. Build Your Dreams, do it.
From a tourism perspective, if somebody were to arrange a visit to this centre, what are they going to see?
Lots of certificates for a start. There were how many patents were there on the wall? Was it 48,000?
48,000.
There are 48,000 patents in BYD. They have this beautiful visitor centre, a marble entrance hall, a big sign saying welcome to the Israeli delegation, lovely chandeliers, and group after group are coming here, getting the video experience, getting to see the latest models, even getting to sit on a bus.
Which model do you fancy? Is there a particular car or train or bus that you would like to take home?
I did like the hydraulic model because you could change the height of where you were. And when you're sat in the traffic in your city, it's always important to be higher than other people, just to feel that little bit more important. Top 10 tips for China. Visitors to China will need a visa to enter. This can be obtained from a Chinese embassy. Many websites such as Facebook, Google, and Instagram are blocked in China. They may be accessed using your overseas SIM card and a roaming data package. English is not as widely used as in other tourist destinations. A translation app will be a great help. Watch out for Chinese holidays. This can lead to very long queues at attractions. Drinking tap water isn't recommended in China. Bottled water is readily available and is usually very cheap. It is not customary to tip, and tips are likely to be refused. At markets and souvenir shops, always bargain to get the best price. Many Chinese people are not used to seeing foreigners. Do not be surprised if people ask for photos with you. Take a business card from your hotel. If you get lost, you can show it to a taxi driver. Don't be surprised to find that public restrooms are mostly squat toilets. Take a toilet roll with you.
Is myth like what someone is before they become a myth is?
Have we just come back from a winery and we're a little bit sicker?
This is the most bizarre tourist attraction in Israel, I reckon.
I'm going for a steak. Let's hope it will love me tender.
A juniper bush! A juniper bush!
And he's buried here and in Jerusalem, possibly. There's a bird behind me. I need to run, but I've got no legs.
You're listening to the Jerusalem Post podcast travel edition with Mark Gordon and David Harris. Mark, we right now are in a city that is massive. High-rise, technology, advanced, one of the world's largest ports. And here we are looking at a tree being planted, I guess, in times gone by.
We are in an exhibition in a museum that celebrates 40 years since the opening up of the Special Economic Zone in Guangzhou. Almost the seed that built this part of China. It took small fishing villages, empty land, and turned it into megapolises. Is that a word?
Yes, megalopolis. No, wait a minute. Megalopolis, isn't that some rock concert in America?
Isn't that Woodstock?
No, there's one called something Lollapalooza in Chicago.
Lollapalooza?
That's the one, yeah. So this is a megalopalooza.
This museum is so full of symbolism, statues. It is fantastically big, like everything else in this city. And over there, if you look, David, you can see a model of Deng Xiaoping, who was the president in 1978. This is all his idea. And what he's doing at the moment is digging a hole and putting a tree in, symbolizing the seeds of that growth.
There was another exhibition we saw a few moments ago, or another message here, which was an ox, and behind the ox was a tree. And the idea was that the ox was uprooting all of the old ways of thinking and introducing reform, introducing development, introducing expansion and growth, which is reflected in the economy of China as a whole, but this region and Shenzhen as a city in particular.
This particular exhibit is over 2 floors. It is 1.3 kilometers long.
That's a mile.
I think there was something like 13,000 exhibits. It could be 1,300. My Chinese is not as good as it used to be. And it's 2 floors of a 5-floor museum, the Museum of Contemporary Art and Opening Up.
One of the issues that foreigners will have is that this museum is entirely in Chinese. However, I assume if you arrange ahead of time, translation will be provided. We have an excellent interpreter in Mr. May, who is bringing to life the stories from this exhibition. As you might be able to hear in the background, another group is coming through and they're hearing their talk in Chinese.
You're sure it's Chinese?
Well worth a visit. Mark, there's a couple of other things you wanted to add about maybe visas and that type of thing if you're coming to China.
Yes, you need a visa to come into mainland China. Go to your local Chinese embassy or go on the website first, find the details and apply for that visa. You won't be able to enter the country without the visa, and you have to get the right sort of visa to visit or to study or whatever you're coming from. Secondly, China still is very much aimed at domestic tourism. Certainly in Shenzhen and Guangzhou province, 90+% of the tourists are local tourists. And that will mean that the Build Your Dreams factory we went to and this museum is all in Chinese. So you need to try and get on an organized tour, either through your hotel or through a group tour, so that you've got a translator that speaks your language. And if you've got the time, add a couple of days to get on the bullet train, and 15 minutes from Shenzhen, you will be in Hong Kong. Another hour and a half from Hong Kong, or going through Guangzhou, you can also go to Macau, which is the gambling mecca of this part of the world, the Las Vegas of China, basically.
So no Israelis would want to go there?
No, not at all. Again, with Macau, it's aimed at a Chinese market. It's predominantly Chinese, but you still have the Sands Casino and all of those Vegas casinos and brands that you know, the Wynn Casino. This is Mark Gordon from the Jerusalem Post Podcast Travel Edition. Find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at markdavidpod or mail us at markdavidpod@gmail.com.
You're listening to the Jerusalem Post podcast travel edition with Mark Gordon and myself, David Harris. We're reporting from Shenzhen on the South China Sea, and quite literally we are looking at the South China Sea. The only thing between us and the water are dozens and dozens of cranes. It's one of the world's largest ports. Most of the world's largest ports are indeed spread around China. But this location is also used for another form of revitalization, because once you have a population of 18, 20, 22 million, that means that all of those people are creating a heck of a lot of waste.
Unsurprisingly, David and I are sat in a bar. It's the Sky Bar on the 5th floor of the Nanshan Energy Ecological Park.
But it's not that type of bar.
No, and it's not that type of park either.
However, the coffee is amazing, and it has Chinese calligraphy on the surface carved in.
Yours is in English, David. There's like an S and an I.
Hang on a minute, I'll turn it
Turn it
upside
round.
down. There you go.
Okay,
now it looks
it's in
Chinese.
So, Nanshan Energy Ecological Park. What is it and why are we here?
What do you do with waste? As we entered the area that tourists see, which in this case is in both Chinese and in English, and the films that are shown are in English, one of the films showed a picture that I'm sure nearly everybody listening to the podcast is familiar with: garbage, plastic bags falling into the sea, as the video at the start says, preventing our planet from remaining blue. All of that waste needs to be treated, but what do you do with waste in order to recycle it? In this case, you turn it into energy.
And an art gallery.
Yes. That's really to just show what can be done. There are some beautiful, beautiful pieces, flowers, elephants and so on, made from used bottles and cardboard, just to give you an idea of how you can turn waste into something. But of course, that is purely the show. There is behind us what we call in Chinese tachlis.
Yes. I don't know how many people have had the opportunity to drive north from Ben Gurion Airport into Tel Aviv, but you will notice on your right there is a large mound covered in grass and a small recycling plant at the front of it, and that's called Khiria, the area, and behind it the waste has been turned into a park called the Ariel Sharon Park. Now, transfer yourself to Shenzhen and you have the same issue, but tenfold. What do you do with all of that waste that's built up over 40 years?
So behind us we have a glorious hill which has been turned into forest area, but here where we're sitting we are actually in an electricity generating plant, and the raw material that is being used to generate the electricity isn't gas, isn't coal, it's plastic waste.
The tourism centre here provides a wonderful tour in English. It lasts an hour, hour and a half, and you will get a chance to walk through the history of this park, why it was built. You get to see how it operates. You actually get to see the control room.
And as Mark said at the start of this little piece, you can also come all the way up to this beautiful bar, have a coffee. We've got watermelon, we've got tomatoes, we've got, what is it, egg white cookies?
Cream egg cookies.
Cream egg cookies sounds very interesting. And we have, more importantly, a 360-degree view where we see the hill behind, we see the city of Shenzhen in the distance, and right next to us, the water and the port. It's really worth a visit.
If you've got an extra half hour to spend here, there are some places that we walk past that we haven't had a chance to visit. The Green Tax Revenue Propaganda Corner sounds fascinating. There's an area called, let me get this right, the Rebirth Station. And in one of the films they were talking about slag processing. No idea what that is.
Amazing the things that you can learn on a tour.
David, I think we finally made it to China.
I think we've made it to madness.
We are on Dongmen Liao Street, or Dongmen Pedestrian Street in Shenzhen. And it's crazy.
I'd never actually seen anything like this before. In fact, we're actually now being watched by other people because they think we are live streaming like all the other influencers within about 100 yards of where we are.
Apparently, live streaming is people completing tasks on camera, and we've got a lady there. Not only has she got a camera, she's got a laptop with her, a portable light, a trolley. She is her own personal TV studio at the top of the road. There's a man singing over there, although you can't hear him.
He's a really good dancer.
There's just people everywhere doing tasks, and in amongst all of that, shopping.
Let's go and see if we can hear the guy singing. We'll move over there. Follow me. This is an incredible scene. This is like Times Square and Leicester Square or Piccadilly Circus in London, but on heat. Let's see if we can actually pick up the sound from this guy. There you go, there's a bit of Chinese singing. There's another one over here. Shall we see if we'll join in as well? Let's wander over. Okay, we're heading around the corner. This guy's got a whole lighting crew and everything.
會笑着好，人間的結局，默默迎送。當生命是流連，什麼先能幸福處？隨時聞到星空，經樂之處，仍能與你互擁，彷彿遊戲之中。 忘掉輕重。
Oh, Shushu! Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Let's see if we can hear this lady, if she doesn't mind us trying to hear what she's saying.
要求哥哥，感谢所有兄弟姐妹们送来的每一票，票能拿下。来，哥姐们，我们扣2个字，拿下，走一波，哥姐们。
Do you remember the days when people used to qualify as journalists and go to acting school to create an art? Now it's any idiot with a microphone. There's hope for us, David.
Let's go and enjoy ourselves, and we'll report back in a bit. I know what you're going to say.
Oh, I won't say it then. I've become predictable. What am I going to say?
Oh, David.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Mark.
We've reversed. We were desperately hungry after we heard those rocking lunatics performing to the world. We were looking for somewhere that we knew was safe for vegetarians to eat. And it was shrimps, it was pork, it was beef.
Can I just point out, David, those aren't safe for vegetarians to eat.
Exactly. We were beginning to panic, and there was a whole crowd of people sort of relying on us, friends that we met who were on this trip with us. So where are you going? Where are you going? We're going to find something that's good for us all to eat. And we came around this street corner and we're just beginning to give up hope, and things are beginning to get a bit dark. It's getting a bit later. And I said to Mark, no, there's not going to be anything here. It's all clothing stores, because what happens in this pedestrianised area of Shenzhen is the sort of regions. So you get a few electronic shops, loads and loads and loads of eateries, and lots of footwear, and suddenly we hit clothing.
I knew we were going to be in luck when I saw Manchester City shirts over there, but I also saw Manchester United shirts, so not necessarily good luck. But opposite the sports store, there were two little stalls, both selling food. One with something called saviour wraps, saviour rolls. I'm not quite sure what a saviour is.
I'm assuming it means savoury, but...
It could do. But it also had some egg rice, but lots of pork and chicken. Mm-hmm. And next door was a place that had two types of noodles, a bit of tofu, some beans, some peanuts.
And lots of garlic.
Lots of garlic.
Oh my goodness. Do you know the address of where we are?
Absolutely not.
So our recommendation is to find this place. But it's fabulous. We're actually being filmed by both the lovely, lovely ladies, one who served us and one from the adjoining store. She's coming in close for a filming now. They're having lots of fun. We'll give them our cards afterwards so they can know to listen to the Jerusalem Post podcast, but they don't speak a word of English or a word of Hebrew.
We're opposite a shop called Deep Jinghao. So if you come past Deep Jinghao near Dongmen Liao Street.
This wraps our time in Shenzhen. We've brought you science and technology, culture, history, And finally, we brought you street action.
We've also brought you tall buildings.
Yes, very.
Very tall buildings. We've brought you shopping. Not too much of us singing, thankfully.
Yes, we could serenade at the end.
We could do. How's your Chinese music?
The only songs I know are probably ones that we shouldn't be singing here. They're not very good.
There's one from Monty Python.
Yes,
we won't
exactly.
go there.
Let's say a few thank yous.
Thank you, David, for being my friend.
Oh, you've started saying this in every podcast now.
You know I'm insincere.
So first of all, I want to say thank you to Mr. May and Mr. Wang.
Wong. It's spelt Wang, pronounced wrong.
Anyway, the two of them have been looking after us. Mr. May joined us all the way from Tel Aviv. He's our minder. He's doing everything to make sure our stay is wonderful. And Mr. Wang is from...
Not Wong Wang. I think it's Mr. Wonky.
Wonky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, he's from the... Get it
Chinese
right.
People's Association for Friendship with Foreign Countries.
I am so impressed. And we want to thank, obviously, all of the staff at the Chinese Embassy in Tel Aviv, everybody else who's made this trip possible, and the friends we've met along the way.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for agreeing to send us here. And the lovely lady at the Langham Shenzhen, who even folded my dirty laundry.
No.
Yes.
Oh, all of my pills and my toothpaste and whatever, she must be OCD. They're all in straight line, and she put them all on a washcloth.
If you're in Shenzhen, it's a really classic but high-class hotel.
Really nice. If you've enjoyed this podcast, which you have,
give it a 5-star rating.
Follow us.
Or write to us at markdavidpod@gmail.com.
Or at markdavidpod across social media.
And please subscribe to our Facebook and our Instagram, so the more followers we have, the more fun places we can go.
And to conclude, the question.
The role of the Chinese People's Association for Friendship with Foreign Countries is to help pair up cities in China with cities around the world. And Shenzhen is paired with a city in Israel, as well as Edinburgh, which we mentioned, and Poznan, which we mentioned, which we've been to. Which Israeli city is it paired with?
Yavne.
No.
Tiberias.
No. I'll give you
Gadara.
a clue. Okay, I won't give you a clue. You just go through every city. Keep going.
Tivon.
No, none of those.
Kiryat Bialik.
However, because Shenzhen is
Meitar. Be'ersheva.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to the Jerusalem Post podcast, special edition, David Does Lists. It's a port city.
Oh.
Because Shenzhen is a port city.
Ashdod.
The other one.
Eilat.
That one's closed down now.
Could it possibly be? Could it be Haifa?
It is Haifa. And the other thing about Haifa is the new port of Haifa is run by a company in China in the city we're going to next. Or not, depending on which order you listen to this.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.